Excellent. Right, we're away. Fantastic. So to start with then, Andrew, could you just sort of start off by explaining why you're helping to lodge a legal challenge against the duelling of the A47?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a much bigger sort of context here, really, and obviously the sort of current weather is really related to it in the fact that we now have the climate emergency here. We've got droughts all the way across Europe, which are the worst since records began. Norfolk is like a tinderbox. We've had the firefighters, very brave firefighters, on Sunday night fighting that blaze in Thetford Forest. I think both Suffolk and Norfolk firefighters. And I heard today there's one at Sandringham going on right as we speak. So we're in the climate emergency, and the UN, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the scientific body of the UN, have all said, we have to reduce emissions, halve them this decade. And the four road schemes around Norwich, just sort of now homing in on the local level, those four road schemes are increasing emissions right in this decade when we should be reducing them. So fundamentally, it's wrong at that level. But in terms of the legal case, I've spent the last year looking at how they appraise the carbon, how they work out the carbon from traffic models, and then how they assess the significance of it. And basically, to be honest, it's nonsense, that they basically design it just to sort of show no effect at all, or no significant effect. But what I've done is home in on a particular thing where they have broken the law in doing that. It's only one part of it, actually. There's a whole sort of big lot of stuff they're doing wrong, but the legal case just homes in on a very small part, which is to do with the fact that they're not assessing those four schemes, the four Norfolk schemes, that's the three A47 ones and the Norwich Western Link together. They just assess them in isolation and then say, oh, the impacts aren't very big in isolation.
I suppose with that in mind, then, are you confident that you're able to win this challenge and then go against various other different roads around Norfolk?
Well, I just have to take the legal advice. So I've got the best lawyers working on it, and they actually some of the lawyers were on the recent challenge to the net zero strategy of the government, which was a successful legal case. The judgment came out about a month ago. And they're telling me the case is arguable. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can win it, but we're going to go full on to do what we can. They've come up with a very, very good, very tight legal case, I think, based on the year's research I did. And so hopefully the stars are with us, so to speak.
And what are the plans if this legal challenge doesn't fail? Is there sort of other plans you have to go out the legality of this?
So if it's successful, you mean? Yeah, definitely. I mean, the same method is used on all the schemes across the UK. So it's used, for example, on controversial schemes, much more controversial ones like the A303 Stonehenge scheme, a road going across the Pennines, the A57. It's also being used on one just about to come to planning, the A66 going sort of further north across the Pennines into the Lake District. And of course, it also will be used on the Norwich Western Link, which locally is a very controversial scheme. So if we're successful, we will definitely then have a sort of precedent which we can take forward on other road schemes on carbon emissions and cumulative carbon emissions.
And what happens if the sort of other side of the coin? What happens if you're not successful with this challenge?
Well, if we're not successful, we'll go on, actually. I mean, there's other issues involved. One of the things I refer to as sort of losing the signal in the noise, which is a bit of sort of engineers, scientists term, but basically the whole carbon assessment methodology aims to minimize the signal from the carbon emissions, if you like, in the assessment method. So what they actually do is take not, in fact, the full carbon emissions from the scheme, but sort of part of them, and then they assess them against the whole economy of the UK and the carbon budget for the whole economy. So I don't know if you've heard the sort of fifth carbon budget, sixth carbon budget. They assess it against those which are the government carbon budgets, but they basically sort of then say, oh, this road makes sort of very little difference to the overall carbon budget. Well, you know, you'd sort of expect that really, but when you look at it on the local level, if you were to assess it locally and you to assess it just in terms of the transport sector, then it becomes much, much more significant. I calculate actually that they reduced the signal by something like a factor of 100,000 by doing that against doing a local assessment. So they really are, you know, sort of bashing down the signal from the carbon and trying to sort of make it look, you know, like it just disappears basically.
Well, thanks so much for your time there, Andrew. That's pretty much all my questions there. Are you all happy with that? Feel like we covered all bases from your end?
Yeah. I mean, I can say a bit about, if you like, about what the proponents of the road scheme are saying in Norfolk. You know,
Yep.
I mean, you know, the A47 Alliance is a body which has just campaigned forever. You know, really, they're very stuck in 20th century approaches to transport. So they're basically just thinking, well, you know, expand the roads, growth. But in climate emergency, we really need something different. But it even goes beyond that, that, for example, the Chamber of Commerce, which has been on the radio this morning on another radio, promoting the scheme, actually have on their website, well, we're trying to get to net zero. The science is clear on we've got to lock in carbon reductions. You know, the planet won't wait. And they're saying one thing and doing something completely different. So it's an absolute deception, actually. And you know, really for these people, it's the county council as well. The county council do the same thing. You know, they say, oh, we've got some environmental strategy, and then they do everything which is in the opposite direction. And this sort of deception has got to stop. And where you sort of say, well, are you going to carry on, you know, whatever happens? I mean, we will. I mean, there's a lot of people who are just not going to accept that deception anymore. Those deceptions coming out, whether it's the A47 Alliance, the DFT, National Highways, Chamber of Commerce, the County Council, you know, we're just not going to accept it anymore because there's too much at stake when we see what's going on in the environment.
Excellent stuff. Well, I think you've given me more than enough there, Andrew. So thank you so much for
Great.
that.
Okay, well, thanks very much for your time, Tom, and look
No
forward
worries.
to sort of hearing it tomorrow morning.
Absolutely. And if there are any more developments with this or the Norwich Western Link or anything similar, do get in touch with me. I think you've got my email now. So yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. I mean, off camera perhaps or
Sure.
whatever.
I'll take that off recording then.